One single, totally unremarkable spark in a pile of garbage triggered an unstoppable chain reaction. It literally sealed the doom of an entire Pennsylvania community, turning the ground right beneath their feet into an absolute inferno. May 27, 1962, the Centralia Borough Council out in Pennsylvania hired 5 volunteer firefighters for what had to be the most mundane task imaginable. They just needed to clean up the town's overflowing landfill before the Memorial Day holiday. Now, this dump was sitting right at the edge of town in a stripped-out pit, and it was just packed to the brim with garbage, old tires, broken furniture, the whole shebang. Okay, let's dive into this. The cleanup routine was exactly what the borough had successfully used for years. Light the trash on fire, let it burn down to ash, and just cover it up with dirt. Easy, right? So they set the fire in the afternoon, came back the next day to douse the visible flames, and went on their merry way. But there was a massive, fatal flaw in the seemingly harmless little process. You see, the pit was completely unsealed. There was a narrow opening at the base that led directly downward into this massive hidden labyrinth of abandoned coal mines running beneath literally every single street in Centralia. And that trash fire, it quietly crept right down through that hole. It turns out, Centralia sat directly on top of one of the largest concentrations of high-grade anthracite coal in the entire world. And anthracite isn't just your run-of-the-mill coal. It's the hardest, the hottest burning, and the absolutely slowest burning form of coal on Earth. While the mines right under the town had been abandoned for decades, the tunnels themselves were completely intact. We're talking about hollow underground veins packed with oxygen and laced with vast amounts of unmined anthracite. So when that sneaky little trash fire finally reached the coal seam, it ignited. And spoiler alert, it never went out.
That was really interesting about this slide is the eerie, creeping way this underground fire started revealing itself. The fire was moving through the tunnels, pushing roughly 50 to 75 feet a year. At first, honestly, the locals kind of just brushed it off. But then, vegetable gardens mysteriously started dying. The pavement on Locust Avenue literally grew warm to the touch. And during the winter, while all the neighboring towns were blanketed in thick snow and frozen grass, Centralia's snow was just completely melting away, leaving these bizarre, warm patches of green everywhere. Since folks in coal towns dealt with small underground fires all the time, everybody just assumed, hey, it'll burn itself out eventually, or the state workers will smother it.
But man, it didn't. Over the next 2 decades, Pennsylvania desperately tried to stop this thing. Federal and state agencies launched at least 7 separate, massive suppression efforts. They dug wide trenches trying to cut off the fire's path. They drilled these deep boreholes and pumped in literally thousands of tons of fly ash, water, and clay slurry. They even tried high-pressure water injection, and every single attempt failed miserably. This stubborn blaze would just outpace them, finding sneaky ways around every trench. By 1980, the fire had spread under more than 200 acres. The cost of these failed fixes, it topped $7 million, and they had absolutely nothing to show for that staggering expense except an even hotter, much larger fire.
Then came the terrifying turning point for the town, Valentine's Day 1981. A 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was just walking through his grandmother's backyard on South Wood Street, completely normal day. And without any warning whatsoever, the ground beneath him literally opened up, and he fell.
Todd plummeted into a sinkhole that was 4 feet wide and roughly 150 feet deep. This vertical shaft had suddenly collapsed because the extreme, intense heat of the fire had completely burned out the rock supports of an old mine tunnel sitting right underneath the yard. Todd desperately grabbed onto a tree root on his way down. He dangled there, screaming for help, while lethal steam and carbon monoxide vented right into his face. Thank goodness his older cousin heard his cries and managed to pull him to safety just in the nick of time. To put that into perspective, the conditions inside that hole were toxic enough to kill a grown adult in mere minutes. So, this near tragedy absolutely propelled Centralia into the national spotlight. It was no longer just some weird regional engineering glitch, right? It was a full-blown federal crisis. The pressure really mounted, and by 1984, Congress stepped in and approved a massive $42 million buyout. Just imagine that for a second. The government offering you fair market value for your beloved family home, but with one incredibly strict condition. You have to take the money and leave forever.
Let's move to and see how this builds. This harsh ultimatum led to the literal erasure of Centralia from the map. Through the late 80s and early 90s, most families packed up, took the check, and just left. Houses were rapidly demolished, leaving behind nothing but empty streets. By 1992, the state declared eminent domain, legally condemning all remaining property. And despite a decades-long legal battle by a few super dedicated holdouts, the unbuilding of the town just kept going. By 2002, the Postal Service entirely revoked the town's zip code. By 2020, even the famous warped and cracked Graffiti Highway, this big stretch of Route 61 completely destroyed by underground heat, was buried right under piles of dirt just to keep the sightseers away.
So if you drive through what used to be Centralia today, you see almost nothing. The buildings are gone, the sidewalks just abruptly end in these empty grass lots. But beneath the surface, the grim reality is absolutely still there. The fire is actively burning under roughly 400 acres of forest in former neighborhoods. Underground temperatures down there, they regularly exceed 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The surface is so incredibly unstable, and the toxic gases vent so unpredictably that state warning signs are posted everywhere. This eerie, fog-covered, smoking landscape was actually the direct visual inspiration for the 2006 horror film Silent Hill. And as for putting it out, the government has officially abandoned any rescue plan. The cheapest serious proposal cost over $660 million, and get this, it still wasn't even guaranteed to work. So letting it burn is now the official strategy.
So the crucial point is this terrifying question. Just how long will this inferno actually last? Because Centralia sits on an absolutely unimaginable amount of coal, experts estimate the ground beneath the town is going to actively burn for at least another 100 years. And honestly, it could very well keep burning for up to 250 years.
The lesson coal region engineers took away from this disaster is absolute. Once anthracite coal ignites inside an oxygenated network of underground tunnels, you cannot stop it with anything short of excavating every single cubic yard of burning rock completely by hand. What began in a mundane trash pit set by 5 men on a quiet weekend essentially transformed one of Pennsylvania's oldest mining communities into a slowly venting chimney that will still be smoking long after everyone alive today is dead.